What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comic Book Flashback. We're looking at Iron Man issue number 2 in this series as we continue to look at volume 1 of Iron Man. And today we will be looking at the first appearance of the Demolisher here. And so we have a pretty unique issue as we look at the second issue of this series. And so before we get started, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe if you have not. If you're new to this channel, I'm happy for you to just join on in and become a member of this YouTube channel. And so let's go ahead now and get started. Today's title is The Day of the Demolisher. And one thing we need to understand is that there is some people that absolutely hate Iron Man, and there are some people that absolutely hate Tony Stark in general, and there's this one guy in particular that actually just cannot stand Iron Man or Tony Stark, and that is Mr. Cord here. And we're going to find out a little bit more about Mr. Cord and exactly who he is, and we have his daughter as well. But before we get started, let's go ahead and give credit where credit is due here. We have Archie Goodwin doing the writing here on this issue, Stan Lee on the editing, Johnny Craig doing the artwork here, and then LP Gregory as well on the lettering. And so, like I said, there's this guy named Mr. Cord and his daughter Janice Cord. And Janice Cord definitely likes Tony Stark, and there's like a relationship going on between the two that we will look at later on in the few issues to come. But basically, what we're going to see here is that her father is going to basically be the sole person responsible for allowing the Demolisher to go after Iron Man, as he is showing his daughter just his obsession with Iron Man, and he's basically blaming Tony Stark, for all of his failures. And we see here that this obsession with Iron Man, this obsession with Tony Stark and putting Tony Stark down, has caused this man to become a mad here. His name is Drexel Cord, and he's basically been second rate to Tony Stark. And so this obsession has driven him to go the extra mile here and create this indestructible robot, as we'll soon see. And this indestructible robot is going to have the name of Demolisher. As he pushes a button here, out comes this green giant robot. And like I said, this thing is going to be very tough to defeat, because what we see here is Drexel Cord has been studying Iron Man forever now. He's been basically looking at every move, every attack that Iron Man does, everything in Iron Man's arsenal, so that this Demolisher robot will not fail in anything. And so he's going to send this robot to do his bidding. First off, Janice is just freaked out, and I mean, anybody would be if you had a giant green robot coming after you. But basically, it's not going to attack anybody. It's just programmed to attack Iron Man. And Drexel Cord is going to be the one person behind the control panels, basically controlling the Demolisher robot, as we'll soon see here. And so Janice is going to get pretty upset about this. She doesn't think this is a good idea, because she thinks this is just on a verge of just trying to kill somebody at this point. Drexel Cord wants Tony Stark to die. So he sends out his robot here, and we see that Tony Stark is on his private yacht with some people here. And we see that Janice Cord is going to slip away without her father knowing. I'm surprised he didn't hear her run away. So Tony Stark is with a bunch of his friends here, a bunch of good-looking ladies here. All of a sudden, one of them looks up and says, "Tony, up in the sky, look." And then he tries to get everybody off board, and he was just seconds away from being clobbered by this robot here, the Demolisher robot. And so we see that Tony Stark is then going to go underground, basically go where someone doesn't notice, and he's going to change to Iron Man here and settle this. So he flies up in the air. He's going to meet this robot. He thinks it's Titanium Man, but actually it's looks a lot different. It acts different, and it's not controlled by or wearing as a person. It's not a person wearing a suit. This is a robot. And so we see that Janice Cord goes all the way to Stark Enterprises, and she meets someone that we've met last issue, which was Jasper Sitwell. And she basically tells Jasper that Tony Stark and Iron Man are in grave danger here. That her dad has sent this robot to basically destroy both the men. And we see that Jasper Sitwell, who's a part of the Shield, is going to jump into his car with Janice, and they're going to go back to where Drexel Cord is at. Meanwhile, we see Iron Man is going to attack this robot as quickly as possible, and we see here that every move that Iron Man tries is not going to stop this Demolisher robot. And we see that more battling is taking place here, and this robot continues to punch Iron Man in the stomach here, and more jolts like that will be hard on Tony Stark's heart, and we know that Tony Stark has a weak heart, and he cannot put up a lot of damage here. And so both Iron Man and the Demolisher are fighting each other, and we see that the Demolisher then is going to cause both of them to go and plunge into the ocean here. So they sink under the sea here, and Iron Man is trying his best to use his repulsor rays, but it doesn't seem to stop. So Iron Man is going to have to basically give up at this point and act like he's been defeated. On the other side of the screen, we see Drexel Cord is just shouting out in triumph here. He thinks this is a glorious sight. As finally Iron Man has been defeated, and he could see it with his own eyes. And he says, while the laboratory's auto camera system records it for the world. And so Iron Man's trying his best, but he finally just gives up. He goes limp. And so then the Demolisher robot is going to surface, bring Iron Man above water. While all this is taking place, Jasper Sitwell and Janice Cord are going to show up. And it looks like they're showing up at this medieval castle. Well, that's what Drexel Cord wanted to lay out when he was creating his own laboratory. He wanted it to look like a medieval castle here. And so she's like, oh crap, he's already locked the door. Jasper Sitwell says, don't worry. S.H.I.E.L.D. would hardly be the proud legend it is today if its men were not fully equipped to handle any emergency. My fountain pen effectively disguises a laser ray. So he tries his best, and he is successful in unlocking that door. And we see that Jasper Sitwell basically tells Drexel to back away from the controls right now. And so we see Drexel Cord is going to then flip a switch here, this control auto destruct, blowing up his equipment here, and it's also going to affect his robot, the Demolisher robot. So the Demolisher robot returns to Drexel Cord's medieval castle with Iron Man, throws Iron Man, and now what they're going to soon find out is that this robot is now not being controlled by Drexel Cord. It's acting on its own. And it doesn't matter who it attacks. It'll even attack its own master. And so we see Jasper Sitwell is going to try to get in the middle of this. He throws, it looks like some kind of bomb here. And it is successful, basically, excuse me for that, is successful in hitting it, but it doesn't do much damage. He swats Jasper Sitwell like a fly. So now Iron Man is going to see if he can basically guard Janice Cord from being zapped by that beam. And then we see that basically Drexel Cord is swat like a fly as well, and he got hurt. So now this is not good for Drexel Cord. He is like a old man, and he cannot put up a lot of damage like that. So what Drexel Cord is going to do, he realizes, he says, I was mad to create an unthinking, unfeeling monster like this. I pray I haven't come to my senses too late. If I can divert that beam for even a few moments, maybe Iron Man will have time to recover. So he hits the robot. The robot turns around, and then he's basically going to zap Drexel Cord, and that spells bad news for Drexel Cord. Finally, Iron Man does, with all of his power, he punches that weak spot on the robot as hard as he can, and then uses some of his repulsor rays to the fullest extent that it can go, even if it causes Iron Man to have a heart attack. But fortunately, Iron Man was able to defeat the robot without passing out. But then we see the tragic news here that Drexel Cord finally realizes that it's not enough to basically produce a machine that equals Iron Man. I never saw the real truth that no skill could duplicate his most essential powers, a human heart and courage. And then, unfortunately, Drexel Cord dies at the end of this issue, and Janice Cord does not know that Iron Man is basically Tony Stark. And so he's going to have to figure out how is he going to react around Janice Cord now when he's around her, because he knows that her father is the one that it drove him to madness is because of Tony Stark. Just knowing Tony Stark basically led him to madness and to his own death. And so that is how we end this issue, folks. The next issue, the title is My Friend, My Foe, The Freak. So I wonder exactly who Iron Man will go up against in next issue. We will soon find out, as we will look at issue number 3 coming up next. But before then, like I said, subscribe if you have not. Comment down below what you liked about this issue. And I will see y'all in the next one.